Hi, seventh graders. So your assignment for today is to start taking notes on Chapter 5, Lesson 1 in genetics. This goes from page 149 to about 156. And the reason I decided to do this video today was because I've been noticing a lot of you are not following some of the note-taking expectations that were put forward at the beginning of the year. So I'm just going to do this as a refresher and just to help you get started on taking better notes, because it's going to help you a lot when it comes to doing your study guides for the test and eventually for taking a test or doing a project. Remember, because we have only a semester of science, it's really important that you're doing the readings outside of class and taking the notes as well. So I'm going to go through, I will help you get your notes started. And then from there, after kind of the first page or two, my expectation is that you take over using just kind of the foundation that I built for you. So if you do not remember where to find kind of the note-taking guidelines, if you go into the life science page, it's at the very, very bottom, actually under methods of science. If you go to the top, you can see right here, if I click on that and I scroll down, there's a copy of notes organization requirements. It looks like this. It talks about taking notes like a high schooler, and then it even gives you right here how to set them up. A lot of you have just been putting in your definitions and then highlighting them, and that's not quite enough information. Remember, only about 20% of your notes should be, definitions that are highlighted. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to start on this page right here. The lesson 1 for genetics is Mendel and his peas. So Gregor Mendel was a really important trailblazer in the field of genetics and really the father of genetic research. So we're going to spend a lot of time learning about him and his work with pea plants and doing genetics. So I'm going to get a fresh page in my notebook. Oh, that's that. All right, so here's my fresh page in my notebook. I have my textbook open next to me right here, okay? And I'm just gonna get started. So I'm looking at my notes requirements, and some of the things you're gonna need for this, I've got, different colored pens, a highlighter. You can use pencil too and a highlighter. I prefer to use different colored pens just to keep things kind of organized and different, easier to find. So I'm gonna start my notes with my first name, and my last name. I want to put the name of the unit, so it's genetics, chapter 5, and this is, interesting, a lot of my pens have disappeared. Genetics, chapter 5, this is lesson 1, not 2, excuse me, and it's Mendel and his peas. And it's pages 149 to 156. Okay. All right, from there, what I'm going to do is I am going to red. You don't have to do red. If you want to do a different color, that's fine. But you will have to box it in. I am going to do the title that is in red in my book. So the reason why it says red title in the notes requirement here is because it's referring to the red title in the book here. Okay, so I am going to look in my book, and it says early ideas about heredity. So I'm going to write early ideas about heredity, and I'm going to box this in. So it stands out to me as something that is of importance. It's an idea of importance. It's maybe a subtitle or something like that. Okay. And then below that, I'm going to start kind of reading through some of the information in that paragraph. Excuse me. All right. So early ideas about heredity. Have you ever mixed two paint colors to make a new color? Long ago, people thought an organism's characteristics or traits mixed like colors of paint because offspring resembled both parents. This is known as blending inheritance. Today, scientists know that heredity, the passing of traits from parents to offspring, is more complex. For example, you might have blue eyes, but both of your parents have brown eyes. How does this happen? More than 150 years ago, Gregor Mendel, an Austrian monk, not an Australian monk, Austria, different country, performed experiments that helped answer these questions and disprove the idea of blending inheritance. Because of his research, Mendel is known as the father of genetics, the study of how traits are passed from parents to offspring. Okay, so there are some important ideas to pull out of those two paragraphs, along with obviously two highlighted definitions. So I'm going to start with a couple little bullet points here of important pieces of information. So the first one is that people used to think organisms' characteristics or traits mixed like colors. I should probably paraphrase this a little bit better. This is blended inheritance. Today, we know that heredity is more complex. All right, now I think an important thing to note is what heredity is. So this is a good place to now put that definition. So heredity, I should probably make this bigger for you. Heredity, passing of traits from parents to offspring. Since it's a definition, I'm going to highlight it. Okay. And underneath that, I will put that this is first experiments in heredity were performed 150 years ago by an Austrian monk named Gregor Mendel. And since this is important, I'm actually going to highlight his name so it stands out to me because I think it's important to know his name. And I'm going to put that he is the father of genetics. And since genetics is a definition, I'm going to write genetics, the study of how traits are passed from one generation to the next. In your book, it actually says from parents to offspring, but that's the same thing. So parents to offspring. you want to paraphrase the definition as I did, that is completely